Hello, and welcome to all of our Recruiting Blogs community members, and thank you so much for joining us for today's presentation entitled 5 Steps to Selecting the Right Job Board. It's my great honor to introduce you to today's guest presenters here, Susan Underwood and Julie Brown, and tell you just a little bit more about each of them. Susan is a manager of talent acquisition with Glassdoor and has over 12 years of experience in recruiting. Susan has worked for local Bay Area companies such as Salesforce.com and Pete's Coffee and Tea, recruiting candidates in tech, finance, accounting, human resources, and related corporate service departments. Julie is the talent acquisition and analytics manager at Glassdoor and has over 10 years of experience in talent acquisition, HR, and recruiting operations. Julie previously led operations for 2 leading media and tech-focused retained executive search firms in New York City before relocating out here to the West Coast in San Francisco in 2013 to join Glassdoor. Susan, Julie, thank you so much for coming on. Thank you for being willing to share your perspective and your experience with all of our Recruiting Blogs community members. So members, of this time, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to our presenters and listen in on today's content. Thanks for being here, guys.
Thank you so much, Daniel. Thanks everyone for joining us today. This is Susan Underwood. Julie and I are so happy to be here today discussing job posting strategy with you. In today's session, we'll cover specific steps on how to evaluate a job board and how to develop your own job posting strategy. It now takes 52 days to fill a vacant position in the U.S. at an average cost per hire of almost $4,000. Fueling a serious portion of that spend is promotion on job postings and networking sites like Monster, Career Builder, and LinkedIn. Naturally, with the war for talent raging, you may want to make sure you maximize every recruitment dollar. Recruit highly engaged talent to your workforce and reduce your time to hire. Unfortunately, not everyone working in talent acquisition is happy with the status quo. In fact, 68% of recruiters say they're dissatisfied with job boards that they're using to recruit talent to their organizations. So where do you start when it comes to figuring out how to select a board that best suits your needs? Start by defining the recruitment challenges or problems that you are looking to solve. Take a moment to think about the biggest recruitment challenges your company is facing. Some of the biggest challenges that we've had at Glassdoor and that we've heard from other employers are lack of employer brand awareness, too many unqualified applicants, poor candidate quality, or recruiting team or process issues. One of the potential drivers in selecting a job posting site or replacing an existing one may come down to the level of candidate engagement on each platform. Typically, older job postings like sites like Monster and Career Builder are simple outposts for candidates to leave resumes and apply for open jobs promoted by employers. Modern job posting sites like Indeed and Glassdoor can now take you a step further, allowing employees to interact with and research employers before applying for open jobs. Glassdoor surveys are confirming this engagement typically delivers more qualified candidates to employers, reducing cost per hire and time to hire, which is a good thing. Let's evaluate each step and ensure you make the right choice. So the most important place to start when selecting the right job posting site to address your recruitment challenges is determining your critical needs versus your nice-to-haves. You may face a dozen or more challenges to overcome. The goal is to work with your recruiting stakeholders in your company to decide which are your most critical needs and challenges. So this is just an example of critical needs and nice-to-haves. This will vary from company to company. This is a really good exercise that we recommend you do with your team to vet out what's most crucial. The nice-to-haves will definitely come in handy if multiple job boards meet your critical needs. Maybe one has a feature that sets it above the rest. To share a personal story, some of our critical needs at Glassdoor are the quality of applicants. This is really number one for us. We find that modern job boards tend to bring us higher quality applicants because these candidates are more informed. The most qualified candidates are researching our company and positions and then tailoring their resumes to apply to a specific job. That means that many aren't just clicking apply instantly after reading the job description. In fact, a job board that will send them a reminder or even allow them to save a job and apply later is ideal. Another critical need for Glassdoor is mobile apply. We get nearly half of our applies via mobile devices, and a strong preference for us is given to job boards who make mobile apply easy for the candidate. In fact, according to a Glassdoor survey, nearly half of all job seekers say they use their mobile devices to search for jobs at least once a day. So at this time, I would like to pause and let Julie take over to discuss the remaining 4 steps to selecting a job board. Julie?
Thanks, Susan. The next step is to create a scorecard. When deciding which job boards to invest in, it's useful to weigh who checks all of your critical needs and nice-to-have boxes and where some may fall short. A great way to do this is to create a scorecard using a 1 to 5 scale for each category, just to keep it simple. I recommend vetting the board side by side to see who wins and who falls short and where. This slide shows a lot of different categories we wanted to highlight as suggestions, but we don't want you to feel like you need to use all of them. Again, simplicity is key. If some of you guys work for larger companies and have a dedicated account manager you're working with, here are some things you might want to also consider when deciding where to post jobs. Customer service is super important. If they're not providing you with stellar service when they're courting you, chances are they're going to be less than stellar once you become an active account. When it comes down to it, pricing is really important. Once you whittle down which boards rank highest for you on your scorecard, it's essential to sit down and crunch the numbers. Do more homework by reading vendor content, gather all pricing information, and compare the value provided by each. What kind of analytics will they provide you with so you can measure the success of your investment after the fact? Most boards offer a preview or freemium account to test products and services. Always make sure you take advantage of this to get a taste of what you're signing on for. This chart is a useful tool and is located in the ebook that we'll be sending you guys after the webinar. When comparing pricing, some questions you may want to answer are, can this vendor offer a solution to improve my recruitment strategy? Is this job posting site relevant to candidates researching my business? What employer brand attributes can I highlight on this job posting site that I can't on others? Will my traffic and impressions be higher on this platform than others? Do they market a mobile app to help job seekers find my listings? Gathering evidence is perhaps the most critical of all 5 steps in selecting a job posting site. Know your market. Know where your competitors are posting. This step can help validate your scoring and initial. Ooh, it sounds like someone's not on. I don't know if you can mute that call so there's not a ringing going on. Thank you. Okay, knowing your market is super important, and knowing your competitors and where they're posting is also key. This step can help validate your scoring and initial thoughts about the job posting site you'd like to select or point you in another direction. Don't be afraid to take a multi-pronged approach to hit different target audiences. You can also survey your job candidates. Ask your recruiting team to get involved and find out where their candidates are looking most frequently. Ask them where they go to research companies. Gather competitive intelligence to see where other companies invest to recruit high-quality candidates. Scour the web and check out who has paid jobs, who comes up first in job search rankings. Many times when looking for the correct vendors, companies will send out requests for proposals or RFPs to determine which job board is going to fit the best with their needs. Here are a few checkpoints to think about when you're looking to see what vendor will work best for your company. Many times this is a process for a larger company to weigh all of the options before making a decision. If you're in a startup company like Glassdoor, you might have a slightly different process. We tend to go with job packs since we're still relatively small. Here are a few tips you can use when sending your top vendor RFPs that list critical requirements. Grade all return proposals against your critical needs and nice-to-haves. Choose the one or more that check the most boxes for you. Chances are you're going to be most successful using more than one job board. Negotiate and seal the deal. Remember, modern recruiting is all about watching your data and being able to show the return on your investment. Make sure you're utilizing the reporting functions within your ATS to closely monitor your application flow to see what is being yielded from each job board source. Talk to your team. Find out who their star candidates are in their pipeline right now and where they came from. It's important to monitor your progress through the first 30-day period before you decide to renew for another month. Was it a worthy investment or not? Much of this is about trial and error in the first month, but after that, the numbers should give you all the answers you need to determine best practice going forward. I'm going to hand it over back to Susan to wrap up on the final few slides.
Okay, thank you, Julie. That was really helpful information. So just to summarize, the 5 steps we recommend when selecting the right job board are: number 1, define your needs; number 2, create a scorecard; number 3, compare pricing; number 4, gather evidence; and number 5, select and measure. Once you get started, you'll see which job boards are really working for your company. We hope now that you have some great ideas on how to evaluate a job board, how to compare one to another, and how to develop your own job posting strategy. So that concludes our presentation. We are going to send out an ebook on everything we covered today so you can use the workbook yourself. And I'd like to pass it back to Daniel now.
Great. Well, thank you to both Julie and Susan. And that ebook will be a treat. So members, hopefully that will be helpful to you to have some takeaway, something you can kind of write on and be able to track these things and a really solid takeaway for you. We would like to thank Glassdoor and acknowledge you guys for sponsoring today's content and say thank you for really giving us just a fascinating look at how we should be structuring that process and the thought flow and determining which job board should be the best fit for the business that you're working on. Now, we have had a couple of questions coming in through that question and answer panel. Members, we're going to be answering all of those for you. I'll be checking Twitter too to see if there's anything on there as well. So if you have yet to have a chance to ask your question, why don't you go ahead and do so now? But until then, why don't we go to the first question? And I get this all the time from a lot of the members on the blogging site that we do here, but basically, quality of candidates seems to be the most important factor that I keep hearing about from people. And I wanted to ask the two of you, kind of as our experts today, who do you think stands out for best quality of candidates? And then do you find that any one of the sites that it varies essentially between the different industries that you'd be looking for? Like, would you go to a different site looking for tech talent or looking for like healthcare talent? Is there anything that you think stands out of things that you would think are like best practices or somebody who you think is really doing a great job out there?
So we think that a lot of times the best quality candidate is going to come from a well-informed and well-researched candidate, so somebody who can really tailor their resume and their message to the actual job at a specific company. So, you know, Glassdoor definitely stands out for us because we are, you know, we're aware that candidates are reviewing companies before they apply via Glassdoor. They've researched companies, they have looked into what the culture is like there, what other employees are saying there, and really making a thoughtful decision to apply rather than just applying to, you know, mass numbers of companies, just trying to get their resume out in front of the most companies. Julie, do you have any other feedback on that?
I agree.
Okay. Yeah, so, I mean, in terms of other industries, Daniel, you mentioned, you know, are there different boards for different industries? There are some niche boards. You know, we don't I don't really have much knowledge on, healthcare and different specific boards just because, we're kind of more in the tech industry. I think for a lot of the major corporate services jobs, whether it be marketing or engineering or product or finance, I think kind of the big modern job boards like Glassdoor and Indeed are the ones that are yielding quality candidates because in general, it's kind of a go-to place. It's coming up in the top of search engines and people are choosing to go there to research before they apply.
Good point. I think you guys are definitely unique, and one of the things that you guys don't not working for Glassdoor at all, but I'm a huge fan of what you guys do. I have been really since the beginning of your product launch, but I think the peer sourced reviews of things goes a long way for people who are looking for those jobs, and it's kind of finding out what's going on in those things, and I think that's really kind of helpful. One of the things that stands people apart. And kind of following up with that, I was wondering, where do you guys think, I mean, we heard a lot about the job boards were dead over the past couple of years, but obviously it's a really great source that's really effective for a lot of people. And I wanted to ask, where do you think job boards are going in the future? What do you think is the trends that we're maybe not seeing right now that we will see as a standard in the next 3 to 5 years or so?
I think that job seekers' expectations have been elevated by sites like Glassdoor and also LinkedIn simply because they add the extra element of content, be it social networking or user content and reviews. So I think that people are going to expect to learn more when they're applying to a job. The job posting market has changed tremendously in the last 30 years. If you think about it, people used to post jobs in newspapers with no information at all or no advertising information. So I think people really expect to see employers going the extra mile to make them want to come work there versus the old school mentality of the job seeker having the power and the company having the power rather. So I think it's a total flipped market now.
Yeah, I would have to go. I think it's definitely become more of a candidate's market. And I don't remember where it was. It might have been from something previously we did with you guys, but something that like millennials, like 70% of them wouldn't accept a position if the company they're looking into doesn't have a solid reputation with their friends and peer group. It's definitely a different world out there where it's not just all on the employer side where you have a position, you have people lining up. There's a lot of expectation from a candidate side about what they're looking for and what kind of specific things or how their work-life balance is going to be or what the culture is going to be like. I think it's probably not a lot of things that had a whole lot of conversation around them maybe 10, 20 years ago, 30 years ago.
Definitely, it's such a we're really shining a light and a magnifying glass on the market, and kind of being accountable for what our workplace looks like and feels like, and what people are saying about it.
And I've got another question here that came in from Stuart. Stuart, thank you for listening today. Thank you for the question. Appreciate the engagement. Stuart was asking, and this is kind of interesting, what job boards does Glassdoor use for their internal positions? Do you guys just only put your stuff up on you, or do you put other places as well?
Yeah, that's a great question. We obviously use our own site primarily, but we do believe in a multi-pronged approach, as I mentioned earlier. You can't rely on one source. We post on LinkedIn, we post on Indeed, and we also post on Craigslist actually quite a bit. We get a really good response in the tech market from Craigslist. So we are everywhere. And as you know, job boards do automatically scrape and acquire jobs because at the core, if you don't have every job available, you're not the full resource. But that said, we get a much higher rate of quality and return when we pay for sponsored job ads to give us better real estate on their page. So we do use all different avenues as well, but we do have 30% of our hires coming in through our own site.
That's a good point, Julie. I'm glad you mentioned that of the sponsored job ads, because you will see jobs for at Glassdoor posted on a bunch of different random sites, and those aren't things that we necessarily went out and posted on those sites. They scrape our site or LinkedIn or Indeed, and they post it themselves. But like Julie said, I think having the sponsored job ads where you know, we will come up in searches is a better source of quality candidate for us.
We make the extra investment on our harder to fill jobs, or the jobs that we have a large quantity of openings on.
I think I've heard that same thing along a lot of the members. Anything that's a very high dollar position tends to get a little bit more focus. I had another question come in from Bob Wheeler. Bob, thank you for listening today. Thank you for the question. And he was asking, do you have any thoughts on capturing the ROI, especially when people research on a job board but apply through a company website?
Generally, what we do is we take every job and we quantify what the time to fill was and how long we had to post it, and how much money we had to put in to get the hire. I mean, it really simply comes from applications and the quality. We've done test runs on certain boards that, you know, say we put $1,000 investment into for, you know, say a group of like 4 or 5 jobs for a month, and we got very few applications on. When we decide to try something new out like that, we monitor what's coming in and the quality, and then we decide if we're going to do it again. It's pretty simple, but it's a matter of keeping your eyes on it.
Yeah, and the other thing that I would add to that is, you know, I think I heard you mention in that last question that how do we really know where they came from? Maybe they researched it on Glassdoor, but they applied through LinkedIn. And, you know, we can't really do much about that. We don't know where people do their research and what site they're actually on when they click apply. So, you know, a little bit of that is up in the air. But, you know, as a recruiter, when I'm on the phone with a candidate, every first round phone screen, I ask the candidates, how did you hear about the job at Glassdoor? And interestingly, in my experience, most people are saying that they heard about the job via the same channel that I'm looking at as their source. So if they say, I read about it on Glassdoor, then their source will show Glassdoor on our ATS. So other people just say, quite honestly, I can't remember where I first heard about it, and that's a great honest answer too, because there are multiple sources of information out there. So to some extent, you know, I don't think you can be 100% certain of every single source of application, but over time and with a large number of jobs, I think you could definitely measure where you're getting the most candidates and where you're getting the most quality candidates.
That's why the whole issue of mobile apply and easy apply are super important, because they allow candidates to apply on the fly. So if they're like on the bus on their way home from a not so great day at work and they decide they're ready to move on and they're searching for jobs on a job board, they have the ability to click one button and apply to a job. Instead of them, you know, thinking about it, emailing it to themselves, going home, talking to their family about it, like they can take action right away. And as a recruiter, that's ideal because it does give us the direct source of where they came from. So I think that problem is becoming less and less prevalent, but it will always exist. And I think, as Susan said, it's a recruiter's job to really listen to their candidate and ask for this information to really get the full picture.
No, it's a great point. I think that mobile apply is huge. I don't know if I can name anybody off the hat who's doing a real one-touch apply, somebody who is, like you said, riding that train home on their iPhone and sees something and wants to respond to it.
Yeah, so we have it. It's a huge initiative here at Glassdoor. So
that is awesome. I'm going to have to go and play on your website and take a peek. Now, I had another question coming in from a member, Kristen Thomas, and she was kind of asking a question around how do you evaluate so many niche boards. I think with you know, the whole plethora of different places where people could be looking at industries, and as many are out there, is there any advice you'd have for people to evaluate whether it's kind of like social media networks? It seems like every time you turn around, there's another one that's out there. do you have any pointers on how to evaluate such a large number of stuff, and probably things that are constantly changing?
Yeah, I think if you're kind of starting from the beginning and you don't know where to start, I would say maybe look as one source is to look at what your competitors are doing. So no matter what industry you're in, you've probably got competitors, and you can, search on some of the main job boards and see where your competitors are investing money, where do they have paid job ads, and use that at least as a first step to determining where your market might be. You don't necessarily want to just copycat and do exactly what your competitor is doing, but anyone in recruiting knows that we should be aware of what our competitors are doing. So using that as one source, and then I think it's a bit of a trial and error. You want to try things, you want to measure it, as we talked about, and then you just want to be nimble and dynamic and change as needed and try new things as they come out. But keep measuring it, keep looking at it, and making thoughtful decisions about where you're spending your recruiting dollars.
I think another really interesting way to do that research, especially with the more modern ways of recruiting and social media, is to look at what a company like, for example, Twitter does to recruit on Twitter. Twitter has a hashtag or a group called like Follow the Flock or something. And when I first started trying to learn how social recruiting worked on Twitter, because I wasn't really an active Twitter user, I looked at their how they were promoting themselves as a recruiting organization on Twitter. So that's an interesting way to go on and check that out. Glassdoor does the same thing. We call it Inside Glassdoor. So, I think it's interesting to go to the source and see how they're using their own platform to promote themselves and emulate that.
Great idea.
No, that's a really great point. It kind of segues into, I just had a member ask a question. Suresh, thank you for the question. He was asking if it's a good idea to post in LinkedIn or Twitter, and if so, how do we need to put together a message and share in the social network, how to target specific resources in social media? So I know you're saying kind of take a peek at what the big boys are doing and try to follow the similar path, but would you have any advice for Suresh who's looking for maybe how to put the message together and maybe advice on how to share it across social networks or targeting specific groups?
I think it's good to have someone on your recruiting team who is kind of an expert in that field and understands the best way to target people. We share a lot of, social messages with our teams on easy ways to kind of blast out the information.
We also use our ATS, we use JobBite,
yes.
And we use our ATS, which has a publisher function, and each employee of Glassdoor has a JobBite account, not just recruiting team members, because the employees will do interviews and submit reviews on JobBite. Evaluations and things like that, but there's a publisher function on JobBite, and I'm sure other ATSs have this as well, and we can post from JobBite to I can choose, do I want it on LinkedIn, do I want it on Twitter, do I want it on my Facebook, and I can choose which jobs and how frequently. So and then all of our employees can do that, and then we hold little training sessions where we tell our employees how to use JobBite. We don't want someone posting 20 times a day and have nothing else on their Twitter account except job after job after job. So we kind of teach them a good ratio of other updates and job posting updates.
Thank you. Members, I've had a couple of you chime in and asking about some kind of a bit specific questions about job boards to go to for specific issues. And just to save us, I don't want to feel like your questions are being ignored, but maybe if you guys want to have a specific question, tag it with our hashtag GDChat, and myself and some of the other Recruiting Blogs team will be there, and we'll see if we can't help you out kind of in the cyberspace using that hashtag to kind of answer some. If you guys have got some very specific things, just in the interest of time and kind of keeping it so it's a benefit to everybody. I have had a couple of other people chiming in though and asking us to kind of recap what we were talking about with where Glassdoor, the job board you guys were using, and it was Glassdoor you use yourself, you use Indeed, Craigslist, and was there one or two others?
Yeah, I also use LinkedIn.
LinkedIn. Okay, perfect. Now, what do you think, as you guys have looked into like your job boards from the multiple angles and been in this a little bit deeper than the average person, what do you think was the most surprising insight as you started this, maybe a preconceived notion you had before you did the work and set together this presentation for us, and something that was kind of eye-opening after the fact? Is there anything that stands out to you, like you weren't expecting it to show up that way, or something that was insightful to you?
So Daniel, I'm not sure we heard the question. It was a little bit hard to hear. I think what you said was, were there any surprises as we post on different job boards? Did anything not turn out the way we thought? Was that the question?
Yeah, just as you guys were doing the research for the job board's presentation here, was there anything that you kind of expected to go one way and it went the opposite, like an insight that you walked away, like a wow moment of you weren't expecting something to be that way, but it surprised you?
No, not while preparing this deck or this presentation. I personally have tried posting on a couple different niche job boards that didn't yield, I won't say who, just to be fair, but we did experiment with different job boards thinking, oh, that's the way, because 5 people said in the company that we must try this job board, and we have experimented, and I was surprised that certain things didn't turn out a large number of applicants. So
yeah, I agree. I've found a lot of different resources online. Some of them are different communities for different professional groups.
right.
They try to jump into the job posting market, and I find we have tried some of them out because they're really useful. Communities are really actively used by certain target groups of candidates that we have. But we find that a lot of them don't, even though, like, first of all, their pricing is too high from the get-go, and I don't think until you're a proven job board you should warrant asking a company to pay you that much unless you can prove the return on investment. And also, their users don't even know they're a job board yet. So I love the idea, and I like the idea of the more niche kind of boards, but they haven't really yielded great results for us. So we are sticking to the larger, more modern players.
Thank you. And I had another question come in, and we kind of talked a little bit about this, but this member, Viral, thank you for putting in a question. It was kind of interesting, is how to target tech people in Twitter. Do you have any advice for targeting people when you have such a short, finite space for your message? Any pointers? Would you say just leverage the people inside the office who are your social media experts, or is there anything else that you would think that would be maybe helpful for our members to hear today?
Yeah, I mean, with Twitter, the key is using hashtags that they're probably going to check, because even though you have 2 seconds to post it, it's not necessarily about who is following you and checking their feed. It's more about what hashtag you're using so that you come up in that hashtag feed if that's what they're interested in, that's what they're going to search for. So I actually, if I can give you guys an example, we had a great article posted about our CEO 2 weeks ago, who is a huge gamer. He is really into World of Warcraft. He's an engineer, and I just happened to retweet it in hashtag World of Warcraft, and we ended up getting I got tons and tons and tons of engineers following me after just posting that and including that community there. So you have to be creative and kind of think for different groups of people.
The other thing, that's a good story, Julie. I didn't know you did that. That's cool. The other thing is there are different professional groups that will retweet your tweet, so if you follow them, so that would require a little bit of research on the part of the user to figure out what organizations are relevant and which ones will retweet, but I found that helpful as well, because then, like Julie said, it doesn't matter how many followers I have, but maybe my message is getting out to thousands of people because someone more popular than me or some organization that has more followers is retweeting it. So that has been very helpful also.
Joe, I think that was awesome. I don't think I've ever heard anybody say leverage the World of Warcraft hashtag to target some engineers, but that makes a bit of sense. So Members, I am afraid we have wrapped up today's content. I don't want to shut anybody down, so if you guys are interested in continuing the discussion and you'd like to use that hashtag, we can do it on Twitter. You can go over to the Recruiting Blogs website and you can add comments in there. We can share a conversation that way. You can go over to our LinkedIn group page. We can comment over there too. Any of those ways, we can definitely be continuing that conversation past our webinar today. I do want to say one more thank you to our guests, Susan and Julie. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your day and sharing some really unique perspectives and things that are going to stick with me for a while, and to Glassdoor for sponsoring today's content. But of course, biggest thank you of all goes out to all of our members out there. You guys are the reason that we do this. We want to be the place for you go to have this conversation, have a dialogue, find the answers to some of the challenges you're facing. Like, let us know if there's answers you still want to get, if there's questions you think nobody's talking about that somebody needs to find a business solution to. Definitely send me a tweet, put a post on Recruiting Blogs, and we'll find a way to connect and work on that stuff together and find you guys some answers. We should be able to have the on-demand version of today's content ready within about 48 hours. So if you really enjoyed what you saw, definitely copy and paste the web address of where you registered and come back to that in roughly 48 hours, and we'll have the on-demand version up for you there. So you can share the content if you love some of the information that was being shared here, and you want your coworkers to see what you saw today. You'll be able to share the exact same thing you saw with them. We'll have it there for you. But I want to thank again everybody for coming out for us today. Thank you so much for your time, and wish you the best remainder of your day, and hope to hear you guys on another webinar with us soon. Have a great day out there.